Hello, welcome. I'm Miriam, I'm a family therapist, and today I'm here with Tanith Carey. Tanith is a parenting author, and she wrote this book, The Friendship Maze, which helps parents understand how children's social lives work and what to do when there's some help needed. So thank you for coming, Tanith.
Not at all.
So Tanith, my first question to you is, how come you started to think about this book and wanted to write it and research about it?
Well, all my books are about the well-being of children, and I felt that friendship was one of the issues that we hadn't really addressed properly, because although we talk a lot about bullying in schools, we don't actually look at the day-to-day relationships that children have, and when things go wrong, how upsetting that can be for them. And I think that often parents feel that they can't get involved, that they don't know what to do, that from the other side of the school gates that they're pretty much powerless. So I think parents feel an enormous amount of panic, particularly with the concern about children's mental health. So I really wanted this book to kind of use all the available social research and just bring it all together as a resource for parents so they could really start to understand their children's friendships. And once they can understand them, they will understand better strategies to help, how to know what to say, put things in context, put things in perspective for children, so that they realise when they do have a fallout with a friend, or they do get excluded, or they don't have anyone to play with, that it's not the end of the world and that they can be helped. It's really about giving children a thinking cap. It's not about giving us a cape so we go to their rescue. It's about helping children understand their friendships, helping parents understand these friendships, and together using that understanding to have better, sort of more calmer social interactions.
This book has got quite a lot of information in it. It's very useful. But I was just curious to know, during your research, what did you find that actually surprised you, or what new angles or new ideas came across that you thought would be useful and interesting?
Well, I mean, it was fascinating in how much understanding there is of children's friendships, but actually parents haven't had that be made accessible to them. So there's an incredible body of work done a lot in the US about children's social hierarchies. And these hierarchies, we tend not to like to think that children are in these kind of, these sort of totem poles. But I mean, if we look back on our own childhoods, we can remember the social status plays, the cliques, the children who were more popular, the children who were less popular. And basically within classrooms, actually these hierarchies are pretty consistent. I think we also have to think that being popular is not the be all and end all. There are different ways that children are popular. Some there is good popularity, there's bad popularity. It's not something that as parents we should always think that our children should need to be, because a child could be popular, but that could also be because other children are scared to cross them. So just by understanding the kind of the forces at work within the classrooms, when things go wrong for children, we can help them understand that it's not personal, it's part of the machinery, the social machinery of childhood, and that these things can be understood and they can understand their place better within them and learn how to basically feel more resilient against those forces.
Now, Tanith, when I'm working with parents sometimes, I can see that their own unresolved issues from their own childhood come to force when, they parent their own children. And I think I'm guilty of that as well as a mom.
Yeah.
It could be that your child comes home and says, "Oh, I've got no friends," and your heart really sinks and it takes you back to when you were maybe 10 or 12 and you didn't have anybody to play with. What would you say to these parents and children? What can help?
So what happens there when we hear our child come home and say that they had no one to play with? We remember the worst rejection in our childhood and we bring that memory to that situation, and we become very panicky because we hear a lot about bullying and we hear its association with suicide and we hear its association with mental health. So we just become very, very protective, very defensive. We might get aggressive with another parent, we might insist the school sort it out. But I think what as parents we also need to remember is that there is normal social conflict within childhood, and that is how children learn to relate to each other. It's how they learn to share, it's how they learn to compromise. And our children do have to go through a certain amount of normal social conflict for them to learn how to relate to other people. So I think our job as parents is to put them in perspective and not bring the worst incident we ever had to even the small incidents that our children have had.
Tanith, you looked into boys and girls a little bit separately and the way they socialize differently? Do they socialize differently? And what is the parents' role in all this?
It's said that girls relate to each other, whereas boys often play with a third thing. So it will be a football or a sport or a chess set or something like that. So girls are a little bit more, from an earlier age, obviously they speak a little bit earlier, they're more articulate, they speak in longer sentences earlier. So if you look into a playground where there are sort of like 7-year-olds, you'll often see the girls sort of playing more let's pretend verbal games, where the boys are doing something more physical. Now, I mean, that sounds like a gross generalization. Obviously there are girls who love to play physically, but it does seem that there are some differences in boys and girls' brains in the way that we currently understand it, which means that they do socialize slightly differently. But what I think I'm trying to say in this book is that we tend to hear a lot about mean girls, and I do think that is a little bit unfair, because boys can also be mean to each other, but as I say, it's just not quite as obvious. But they also need to have space and an opportunity to discuss those relationships as well.
What can parents do to encourage that? If their boy isn't saying anything, how is school? Oh, okay. What did you do? Nothing much. What can parents do?
Yeah, I think with boys it's really a question of picking your moment. So if they come home from school and they're looking a bit down, there's no point kind of grilling them and saying, well, what's happened? Is there a problem? Because like any of us, if we come home from work and we were grilled by someone about the way our day had been, it would also be wouldn't feel quite right, and it would just feel like we were just sort of feeding the anxiety of the person who was asking the question. So I think it's about being really emotionally aware of when your son is ready to open up. I also think that we also have to give boys the language and the permission to talk emotionally about their relationships. I mean, there's a lot of research that's been done that shows even from an early age we tend to tell children that if you're a girl it's okay to cry, and if it's a boy you have to be brave. And these are lessons that they carry on for an awful long time. So I think we need to give them the ability to name their emotions, the opportunity to name their emotions, and let them flow and just allow them that opportunity, because otherwise they tend to suffer these friendship problems alone, because they really feel that by expressing or sort of standing up for themselves against a friend who's maybe teasing them, that they're showing weakness, and they fear that they're going to be teased more if they show that weakness. So I think it's trying to sort of really understand friendships from your boy's point of view, and not think, oh yeah, boys are really easy. They might seem easy because they're trying to hold it all in, because they want to look strong and manly, but actually within those walls there's quite a lot going on. And I think it's really great if we can just really help them know that we're ready to talk, and we're not going to go mad if someone's called them a douchebag or something like that. We're going to be like, okay, fine, how are you going to deal with that? How do you feel about that? Do you feel that it's time to kind of step back or say something or defend your boundaries? I think sometimes with boys it helps if you have a great guy in your life, like a father, an uncle, or a cousin. Yeah. When a male role model brings to bear their own experiences with friendship, that can help a boy feel that he's got more permission to do so too.
Yeah, and I think also talking to boys as you're doing something else together, alongside them, playing together, or going for a walk or in the car, is much better than let's sit and let's have a conversation about it, because their immediate reaction to that would be usually to shut down.
Absolutely, yeah. Or maybe watch some films with them. I think there are some great
discuss.
There's some great films on boys' friendships, which could be a great platform to talk about their social relationships, their groups.
Great. Yeah. So thank you very much, Tanith. And my last question to you is, if there was one thing you'd want parents to get from your book, what would that be?
The one thing I would want them to get from this book is that basically we tend to think that there's nothing we can do to help our children become better friends or help them deal with these things. But actually there's an awful lot we can do from the other side of the school gates, and that is to teach them very early skills like sharing, compromise, turn-taking, good sportsmanship. And these are all things that we can actively develop in our children. So if your child is often coming home and saying that they have no one to play with, we can also teach them social skills.
Definitely. I think that's definitely doable. And the other thing I would say is that your children are looking at you all the time. They're looking at what you do, not just what you say. So if you are yourself quite a loner, or if you're very cliquey, or if you talk unkindly about other people, they will get that.
Absolutely,
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you, Tanith. Thank you all for watching, and enjoy your children.